Hey, what's up, guys? So I'm here at this cemetery here. I think it's called Balls Bluff. Yeah, Balls Bluff National Cemetery. So this is just kind of a scan of the scenery here. But between those signs there and this brick wall here is a mass grave of unknown soldiers, about 200 plus that died here 1861, October, I believe, 21st sorry, not 1861, fighting over freedom. The same idea that we're fighting over now with our elections. And here you can see the headstones. There's roughly about 25 unidentified people they believe that are buried here in this area. They don't have the full body, but it's a mass grave, you know. This is a national cemetery. Only one that was able to be identified was this James Allen gentleman. Died at 21 years old, October 21st, 1861. And then you can actually, I don't know, they got a headstone over here, or a memorial there. See that little brick there? It's more than a brick, that stone there. You can see the old battlefield tools. But I just wanted to share this and then read this address by President Lincoln at the time, which is pretty amazing to see. It says, this is at the dedication of the Gettysburg National Cemetery. This is November 1863. I don't know if you'd be able to get all of that in the screen, but I'll read it to you. It says, 7 years ago, so 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Wow, what a speech. And what a time. It's, late August 2024? Not quite 200 years, but definitely, almost 170, somewhere over thereabouts, 160, 170 years later. And right now, there's a fight for the freedom of speech, if you will, freedom of expression of ideas, you know. We're fighting amongst ourselves, not literally fighting in war or battle yet, but we've got some pretty strong words for each other, depending on whether you voted for former President Trump or whether you know, you're a fan of Biden, or whether you think Kamala Harris, whether you think she's worthy of presidency, some strong language for each other. But here we are on the battlefield of men in the mid 1800s and killed each other for their beliefs on freedom, which we believe and have been taught that it was for the freedom of slaves in the South, whether or not they should be slaves. And some said that they're property and that they are owned and therefore they should not be free and they're not worthy of the liberties that other Americans enjoyed. And some Americans said, no, they're men just like you and I, and they deserve to enjoy the same freedoms that you and I deserve regardless of their skin color. And so here the men fought, died, and lost their lives, and to the point that some of them were, well, most of them actually, majority of them were unrecognizable. Here you can see the first black combatants of the Civil War here. I don't know if you can see that picture of the soldier there, African soldier. Let's say African black soldier. But here I just wanted to show you these numbers I saw earlier. But look at that. Number of soldiers, 1,700, 1,720, 1,720, 1,709. Killed on the Union side, 223. 36 killed on the Confederate side. Over 200 wounded on both sides. Captured 55, 553 Union. 3 captured Confederate. And look at this here. Look at that, them stabbing a soldier with other soldiers fired upon them. Gruesome hand-to-hand combat round right here on this field. Something to think about. Then we come to this stone. This is the one I was telling you about, James Allen. Look at this, from 1840. Oh no, I thought this was Clinton Hatcher. No, it's Clinton Hatcher. I'm sorry, I thought it was James Allen. But Clinton Hatcher, 1861. He was 21 years old. And there's his story. 6'4", redhead guy. Said he was a Quaker. He's not buried here, but this was left in remembrance of him. Photo of him there. Nice looking young man, the bow tie. Gave his life for what he believed in. And to think that there's just a mass grave. Just, if you were to dig down in here, there would be bones and skulls. That's something to think about, isn't it? Yeah, it's something to think about, that these men believe so strongly, the group of men and women believe so strongly about their beliefs that they're willing to die for it. They're willing to go to war with each other over it. And this is just one example of it. From that wall to here is a mass grave of over 200 men. Unidentifiable. Can you imagine that? Giving your life for something you believe in, only to be buried in a mass grave, and they're not even able to identify you or even put your name. And in there is 24 unmarked graves to the unknown soldiers. Think about that. And now, 100 years later, and really on the wall over there, they said just 4 years after the battle happened in 1865, the governor tried to come out here and have men, figure out who was who and what's what, but they were unidentifiable. And the spoils of war, that's real. That's real war. That's the real reality of war. And I think that's something to just ponder upon, that, hey, you believe so strongly that you gave your life only to be forgotten, not even 4 years later, And I don't mean that, that they were forgotten altogether, because obviously we have this memorial here, but each individual man, that's over 200 men, we don't even know their names. You know, we just know that they died here. And their families will never know. And their families died not knowing more or less where they died. All they know is that they never came home when they went out for war. And so they have to assume that they died, right? But they couldn't quite ever, I imagine, give up 100% hope, maybe 99% hope. But I imagine they always, till the day they died, held hope that maybe one day somebody might knock on the door, right? Maybe one day somebody might ring the doorbell, and it'd be that missing son, father, husband that you prayed would come home, you know? It's something to think about. And to think now that these men were fighting over freedom for, I would say, African Americans, freedom for slaves at the time, freedom of expression for those slaves that could not, quote unquote, defend themselves. And now here we are fighting over, you know, whether a man is a man, a woman is a woman, whether a man can be a woman, you know, whether taxes should continue to rise higher, whether we should allow illegal immigrants to continue to, you know, pour into the country without ramifications or consequences. You know, it's something to really consider and ponder. You know, history has a tendency to repeat itself, especially if people don't study it. But I just think it's something to be out here and to see all of this and to think, you know, wow, this nation was built on blood. It was built by war. It was built by conquering. And it was built by men and women that were willing to die for what they believed in, and did die for what they believed in, you know? And I wonder, in today's society, you know, are we the same? You know, do we still have that in us? That would there be a point where we would pick up our own guns and weapons and defend ourselves or fight for what it is that we believe in, to the point that we'd be willing to die, you know? I certainly see people, you know, willing to go and pick up a poster board sign and protest, you know, and I can certainly see people picking up a microphone and, you know, yelling and screaming and things. But would you really be willing to lay it all on the line? Give up your house, give up your career, give up your job, give up the possibility of growing old with your family to go and fight for what it is that you believe is right. And even if you're wrong, you know, I'm saying that all these men are right or wrong, but do you have that type of conviction? Do you have that type of certainty in what it is that you do believe? I don't know. I'll question if most of Americans have that same fighting spirit or not. I certainly know that there are some, for sure, but is it a majority of Americans? I don't know. We live now in a society where social media seems to sway the opinions of people, and you can quote unquote get canceled. And so maybe you can log on to Instagram or Twitter or X now, and maybe people don't like your account, or people leave so many negative comments or whatever that you want to delete your account, or maybe that so many people call your job or your house or your number, you have to change it or something. And they can harass you. But, you know, do you believe it enough to come out here on the battlefield and possibly end up there in a mass grave without anyone even knowing your name, unrecognizable because they, you know, chopped your head off or stabbed you in your lungs or cut your arm off and you kept fighting, your head's missing from your body, or maybe your face is so mangled because it's been beat in by, you know, the back of someone's rifle or mullet, right? Or maybe a bomb you fell on, or you were bombed, right? And so now you just have a hole like this full with human body parts, and they just cover it up. And they go, it's a mass grave. And they go, about 200 so people were killed here. Now, obviously, today we have a little more technology, so we know who's missing, and we'd be able to say who would be dead or not. But do we really have that type of conviction in our beliefs? Would we really stand that strong if our government decided to even further overstep its boundaries? Where would we draw the line? Where would we say enough is enough? Where would we form a militia to protect ourselves against a government? Why do you think they want to take your guns away? So that you would not be able to defend yourself here. This wouldn't even been a battle here if one side didn't have guns, right? They just easily would have been able to take over. It would have either been a massacre. I don't mean to laugh, but it would have been a massacre, or been a full-on surrender, because one side wouldn't have had guns or weapons to even protect themselves, to even try to fight for what they believed in, or to try to defend themselves. So something to think about when we look at today's landscape. But, well, there is relative peace in America, relatively speaking. I thank God for it. Excuse me. Just gotta sneeze. I thank God for the time that, we're not, quote unquote, literally at arms with our neighbors yet. And I don't know that I really want to be around when that day comes. And I don't know what that really would look like. But all I can tell you is from my time at sea, during wartime I served, is that war is not pretty. And no matter how Hollywood does an excellent job of making movies like Private Ryan or Braveheart or 300, right? It is not glamorous nor glorious the way they try to make it seem. And I can certainly tell you it's ugly. It's ugly, 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 all the way around. For those that win, it's ugly. And even more so for those that lose, it's ugly. It's a heavy toll, it's a heavy loss, no matter what. The cost of human life, it's ugly. It's not something that's pretty. I don't know that I would necessarily say it's always avoidable, because even in the Bible, throughout the Bible, a lot of the land that God gave King David was taken by conquering and by war and by spoil. So that's not necessarily to say that's not of God, but I can certainly tell you it's gore, G-O-R-E, gore. It's a lot of gore. And when I look at that, even though God gave King David all these countries and land by conquering, when King David wanted to build the temple for God, he said, no, you got too much blood on your hands. So, even for God, war is not, it's ugly. It's ugly. A lot of bloodshed. And today's military, with all the people twerking and all the people that can't decide, what gender they decide they, want to be, or at least claim to be. I don't know that our military is really up to the task the way it once was. I certainly question it, and I served for 9 years. And I know what I saw, and I know what I hear from active duty members now, and I know what I hear from people that are getting out and separating now. And I don't know that we have the readiness that we once had. Granted, I don't know that war would ever look the way it once did with men on the ground like it used to, because we just have so much technology that we could sit at home and fire a missile from California and hit somewhere else in Japan or Korea and vice versa, right? So, we could do a lot of damage just from sitting out on a aircraft carrier in the middle Pacific. We don't even need to be on the ground. And we got jets and, who knows what we got up in space, but I imagine they probably got some stuff in space that they don't tell us about that could drop down from one of them satellites or whatever. So I don't know that would necessarily be on the ground man to man like it once was, but either way, it still wouldn't be pretty at all. But just wanted to share with you this moment in time because I think it's worth seeing. I'm sure there's a lot of places that we, especially in the South, right? Or in the East Coast, rather. It's East Coast and in the South. There's a lot of places that we probably go around. We don't even realize that it was once a, war area or an area where men fought and died. This is just one battle that they commemorated and decided to have a memorial for. But I'm sure there's a lot of areas that, I know for sure my old neighborhood as a kid where I grew up in South Carolina, a lot of the houses were made from scrap materials from prisoner of war, so POW camps from World War II. They had POW camps, and a lot of the houses in that neighborhood were built from materials from that. So, even where I grew up, there was spoils of war there. We just didn't have a, whole memorial, whole commemoration thing for it. So, yeah. I think it was good to share this because sometimes I feel like in this modern world that we live in, it can be very comfortable at times, right? You can jump on the internet and see and do whatever you want to do and kind of pretend to be whoever you want to be. Sorry, it's like I don't know, I think I don't know if it's a mosquito or a gnat or something kind of buzzing in my ear, but we get very comfortable. We all got luxury cars and luxury homes, and like I just left Walmart and there's a guy in the parking lot, I presume he works for Walmart, and he's like, yo man, have you heard of Walmart Home? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, Walmart Home. And I'm like, nah, I got Walmart Plus or whatever. And man, bugs is just everywhere, excuse me. But he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, this is a step up from that. He's like, Walmart Plus, we just bring the groceries to your door. For Walmart Home, we actually unload it into your house. I'm like, bro, what? I'm like, man, I'm old school, bro. I'm like, I'm not that spoiled, I'm all for luxury. I'm all for having help. But some stuff I think is just lazy, And I'm like, my father was born during World War II, for reference. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad was raised, my dad was 22 years old during the Civil Rights Movement. Just wrap that around. And he was raised in the South. So my father, the father that raised me, was a grown man, drinking age by today's standards, before the Civil Rights Movement happened. So how you think he was raised? He was raised in the South on the farm. So if that's how he was raised, how do you think he raised me? And I only say all that to say, like, bro, somebody will come in your house and disseminate your groceries for you throughout the house? Like, where's your pride in just taking care of your place, And I get it. It's a luxurious service, Hey, you want to pay for it? You pay somebody, they just put in all your groceries. It's very convenient. It's very comfortable. But sometimes I feel like we get too comfortable, right? And when you get comfortable like that, you become vulnerable because you're no longer hard, right? You no longer have a real standard that you built. And we all, I'm not gonna say we all, how would be a better way to say this? We all can see the effects of a spoiled child or children that were spoiled, and we see how they act in life. But I believe as a nation, we've kind of began to start spoiling ourselves. You know, some of our debates, it's dumb. You know, we all, at least we should know what a man and woman is. But the fact that that's even a debate on a national scale, for that matter, the fact that you got men competing against women, and men are claiming that they're women, and they're whipping the women's butt ridiculously and stealing all their records, that even happened, that lets you know that we're a bit spoiled, because we don't have any quote-unquote serious issues, so we can create dumb stuff like that. But you're telling me that if there was Russian, whoa, dang, it was like a bee or something. But you're telling me if there were Russians here, or North Korea was in Florida, or, you know, Georgia or North Carolina, and they had already taken our shore, and you found out that, you know, North Korea or the Japanese or the Russians had camps set up in Myrtle Beach and in Daytona Beach, and that they had, you know, grounds set up, you telling me that you would have time to be debating on who's a man and who's a woman? Or you think you'd be strategizing on, hey, how do we take back and how we defend ourselves against these intruders? You know what I mean? Like, you're telling me that if you didn't really have food to eat, or you didn't have a government handing out food like it was a freaking, you know, piece of candy, but you actually had to go to work and provide the feed for yourself, or else you were going to starve, because there was no government handouts, there was no social security, or there was no food stamp card. Look at that, there's a whole rabbit there. You're telling me that you'd have time to debate that foolishness? Or would you be trying to figure out how to feed you and your family and survive? Hey, Mr. Rabbit. Man, look at that. Huh. Where'd he go? Oh, there he goes. Anyways, you wouldn't have time for that stuff, right? So I think we as a nation have been spoiled. And that's a good and bad thing. It means that the men and women before us did a great job of laying the foundations that we did get to enjoy some of the freedoms that they were not able to enjoy, or that they gave up their lives so that we could enjoy. But at the same time, that means we have a responsibility to protect those freedoms and to make sure that we take advantage of those freedoms to be productive and to ensure that our country continues to thrive and grow as a nation and become stronger and not necessarily weaker, right? Because the great Roman Empire did fall, and it was a great empire, and they did rule, as we were told by history, for 5,000 years. So, I mean, that's more than 10x what we've been around, because we've only been around for 200 years, and sometimes it feels like we're crumbling. So to say 5,000 years, that's strong, you know? So anyway, so just wanted to share this. This is Veterans Park at Balls Bluff. And yeah, it's a battlefield, and now look at what this battlefield area around has turned into, a beautiful neighborhood where people are thriving. I'm pretty sure they're proud to own their homes and raise their family here in peace with no fear of anybody attacking them or breaking in, for the most part. And just behind them was a battlefield where men lost their lives. Over 200 men lost their lives fighting for freedom for slaves in America. All right, guys, just wanted to share. Hope you enjoy the video.